Welcome to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, where we trade in personal finance advice for entertaining conversations about money, and would like to answer Mr. Josh Sims of Fox 46 in Charlotte, North Carolina. We will never stop comparing LeBron James to Michael Jordan. Never. Welcome to yet another episode of Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. I'm joined here by Mr. Personal Financial Advisor, Mr. Malcolm Ethridge. What's going on with you, man?
Not too much, man. I hope folks can hear me fine after I got beat up at the dentist today.
You went to the dentist today. What's that about?
I have so half the teeth in my, you probably heard me boo-hooing about this like a million times, but half the teeth in my head aren't mine at this point. They're either implants or
You got gold teeth anywhere?
Not gold teeth.
No? Okay.
Technology has gotten to the point now where, precious metals can stay out of the equation. But so I had a implant that somehow started shaking and rattling and came loose.
Right.
So I had to go to the dentist to get it fixed, but it's not meant to ever come out.
Oh, wow.
So you have to consider how much work it took to get the thing out, to fix it. It was intense.
Are you in pain now? Because it was today.
Yes. Well, I'm on painkillers, so probably, and I just don't know it. But more importantly, though, I'm more concerned with how much these dental procedures cost me.
Okay.
I have insurance.
I was going to say.
I have a good job and have good insurance.
Right.
I should be able to afford, but for whatever reason in America, dental procedures don't count as part of your regular medical plan.
Right, because technically you can go without it and just have a jacked up mouth.
Well, so part of the reason I have this problem now, I didn't really go to the dentist the whole time I was in college.
Oh, wow.
So that's 4 years of neglect right there that have cost me however many thousands of dollars now. But I feel like, maybe that's how they'll fix Obamacare. They'll blend in dental coverage with, I go to the doctor, I spend $5 on a physical. I go to the dentist, I spend $5,000 on new teeth. There's an imbalance here that needs to be accommodated.
Just move a little bit over to the other side.
Come on,
That's funny.
Anyway.
I don't think I went to the dentist either in college, but I had braces all through high school. And when you have braces, it's like training for how to keep your teeth up. But anyway,
Okay.
Of course, this is Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Today's conversation at hand, major spring 2018 money headlines. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the show. But as we do on every show, it is now time for headlines. This 30-year-old woman says she gave up her home after spending $13,000 on weddings and bachelorette parties. This was a Business Insider article in April of 2018 by Rosie Fitzmaurice. The story went a little something like this. Many people know someone who's attending 9 or 10 weddings this year. It's easy to start resenting the expenses and in some cases unnecessary extravagance. Suddenly, a day that's supposed to be about celebrating with friends and family becomes a financial burden. So this particular story was pretty hilarious.
I thought it was fake news.
You
when I
thought
first saw it.
No, this was apparently a real story. The woman's name was Georgina Childs. She said she's 30, and she said on a British TV program that she gave up her rental home after spending £9,250, or the equivalent of $12,000, on friend's wedding. She's from Essex, England. Georgina told the British TV program it's called, what is it called? This Morning. And she spent the $12,000 or over $10,000. It's really closer to $13,000 on attending 14 weddings and 14 hen parties over 4 years. And hen party is another word for bachelorette party. It's just like the UK, London way of expressing it. Child says she resorted to credit cards to foot the bill for accommodation and transportation costs, and that she spent £1,500 on outfits and over £4,000 on hotels over the years. As debt mounted, she says she ended up giving up her rented flat and moving back in with her parents to continue seeing her friends get married. I'm wondering, when is she getting married? But anyway, Here I go trying to marry people off. Child
finally admitted.
Child says now she dreads the arrival of wedding invitations. While it's an exciting honor to be invited to the ceremony or a hen do, they call it. She said she finds it difficult to turn one down for fear of coming across rude. Be rude, baby girl. Don't go no more. But anyways, this is a hilarious, interesting story. Too bad for her, but she gets to be the object of our entertainment today.
So when I sent you the story in my outrage,
right,
I actually was sending it to you just like in my old man moment of, would you look at this? Somebody else, please come look at this, because I've been looking at it all this time, and I need somebody else to look at it.
Right.
I didn't know that we would actually end up talking about it in any meaningful kind of way on the show.
Sure.
But I'm glad we are, because we should shame Georgina for her terrible financial decision in this case. I did not understand how you could even fathom giving up your place of residence in exchange for spending money to attend everyone else's weddings. Right. That math doesn't add up to me.
Well, I mean, it certainly folds nicely into the millennial digital culture that we live in, where experiences feel like having a house. I got 300 likes on my picture.
Where are her parents?
Well, she moved back in with them. But question for you: have you ever considered not attending or participating in a wedding due to cost? And I don't want to put you like
that a real question.
I feel like it is. Not for you, but for like.
You don't think you already know the answer? I have turned down weddings I've been invited to because the cost just outweighed the benefit. And, sorry to anybody who's going to listen to this and have to relive getting that no RSVP in the mail going, I thought we were boys. What is this? People who know me know that money first, dude. We're 24, 25 years old. I got $7 to my name. I'm not going into debt to watch you come make a decision. That's basically what a wedding is. How am I going to spend thousands of dollars to come to, daggone Jamaica to watch you come say, yes, we eat some cake, and then I come back home? I'm not rolling like that.
Right. That's hilarious, man.
So, yes, to answer your question in short, yes, I have turned down a few weddings.
It's a friend of yours or a relative of yours right now who's getting married who's like, scratch that fool off the list right now.
So, as you know, I told you a while ago, I just got engaged myself not too long ago.
Right.
I feel like people are going to pay me back. They're going to be like, it sounds like it'll be a nice ceremony. Right. Wish you the best.
Malcolm whole side of the chapel empty. Or whatever is going to be empty. Nobody's going to be there except his parents. So given the fact that there are some people that are important in our lives that we want to participate in their wedding, what are some good suggestions to lower or avoid unnecessary weddings, bachelor or bachelorette parties, and the like? What are some solutions?
I think just simply keeping in mind being on the other side of this request.
Right.
When you're the one getting married and you're making these requests, right? A lot of times for I don't know what it's like for women, but for the guy, when you rent your tuxedo from the same tuxedo shop that everybody getting married rents their tuxedos from, you go to get yours, you have more than 2 or 3 groomsmen, they give you yours for free.
Right.
So you go and pick the nicest, flyest thing you can possibly find. Right. I'm going to outfit my groomsmen in Vera Wang. Well, now your groomsmen have to pay $400 to rent this tuxedo for 2 days or whatever it is.
Right.
Again, all just to come watch you say, yes, I do.
Right.
So keeping those kind of things in mind, I think, are simple enough that maybe then people don't talk about the money they spent, but they start to talk about the good time they had at this wedding.
Absolutely. Another suggestion that I have, just, have fewer or prioritize the friends you have. That sounds like a horrible thing to say, but it can't everybody. You don't have 14 people whose wedding activities
some people do.
Well,
Georgina, she's got 23 of her closest friends getting married.
I guess.
Some people do.
I guess. Well, that is that.
You're gonna find out real fast just how close friends you are.
Well, I got one more coming up. I was in one recently a couple weeks ago. My friend Brandon got married. I was in that one. That one was I had no problem spending the money on it. And I got another one coming up where I'm the best man for Nate, and that's it. After that, unless you're doing courthouse wedding or small ceremony somewhere, and it's a vacation for me as well, Don't worry about it. I'll just come and see you get married. So anyway, this of course is Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We want to remind people that you can always catch past episodes of the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and of course Spotify. And of course, leave us a review on any of those platforms. Let us know how we're doing. Give us 5 stars if you think we have earned it. That helps us go up in the ratings. Also, if you have a question for us or would like us to cover a particular topic, send us a question by email, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. And also, you can follow us on social media. My handle is @MYDM1. What's yours, Malcolm?
@MalcolmOnMoney.
And of course, that's on Instagram and Twitter. And you can always catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/manageyourdamnmoney. This is MYDM with Ben and Malcolm. We will be right back. Welcome back to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. This episode's conversation at hand, major spring 2018 money headlines. Spring has finally sprung here in D.C. and I think in other places, Malcolm. The sun is coming out to play and summer is right around the corner. That's why now is a great time to take a look at our crystal ball to share some major headlines to understand and forecast what's ahead for you and millennials and Generation Yers and everyone else in managing your money through the summer, which is known to be a peak trick-off time of year. This first headline, Trump's SEC proposes Obama-era broker conflict rules rewrite. This was from a Bloomberg article in April 2018 by Benjamin Bain and Robert Schmidt. This is actually kind of thick article, so hold on tight. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Wednesday proposed overhauling its conflict of interest rules for brokers, a move likely ensuring that Wall Street won't have to comply with much tougher regulations approved at the end of Barack Obama's presidency. At a public meeting in Washington, SEC commissioners voted 4-1 to seek public comment on a best interest obligation for brokers, and best interest is in quotes. While the standard is stiffer than existing SEC requirements, it's not as stringent as the fiduciary duty that forces investment advisors to put clients' interests ahead of their own. In 2016, Obama's Labor Department sought to extend a fiduciary obligation to brokers who offer retirement advice, but those strict structures are in limbo, or those rules are in limbo after being struck down by a federal appeals court. The SEC proposal comes after weeks of wrangling among the agency's commissioners and months of input from investor advocates and industry groups. The regulations mark an attempt by somebody, I think, on the board or whatever, who was actually a former big bank lawyer appointed by President Donald Trump, to address legal and regulatory uncertainties triggered by the labor's controversial rules, or the rules that were being suggested. If the SEC's roughly 1,000-page plan goes into effect, the industry experts expect it to replace the Obama-era constraints. So this, whatever they're discussing, will replace what the Obama administration tried to put in on the way out the door. Specifically, the SEC proposal requires that brokers disclose all quote-unquote key facts about potential conflicts and mandates that they have a quote-unquote reasonable basis to conclude investment products are in their clients' best interest. The agency said in a statement it would also require that the firms note and mitigate material conflicts of interest related to financial incentives. And some of this drew criticism from several commissioners on the SEC board because it doesn't specifically define what a best interest actually means. It also wouldn't expressly prohibit practices that investor advocates can say encourage bad behavior, such as offering free vacations to brokers who meet sales targets. Now, Malcolm, as I'm finishing reading that, I don't even know what I just read. So how about you help break this down? What's at play here? What are the things that are going on here?
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot of moving parts, and I'll do my best to distill it down into the time we actually have on this show.
Absolutely.
But essentially, there's a few different factors. One, the Obama administration made retirement savings a priority, a retirement saving for Americans a priority toward the latter portion of his second term.
Okay.
So they tried to put in place a few different things that were designed to help people save more for their own retirement. But separately from that, the Obama administration saw that one of the things keeping the average American from being able to actually save for their own retirement was brokers / financial advisors who were charging commissions that they deemed excessive to those clients, because if you're paying a commission or a inflated fee, that's eating away at the long-term growth, those returns that you would be seeing in that account. And so a lot of what the Obama administration put into place was designed to help protect the average American who has retirement savings to keep from getting quote-unquote taken to the cleaners. The challenge, and this is my opinion now, the challenge to it was that it was a little bit too broad, and also did just as much harm as good as it was meant to initially create. So yes, I do think there are quite a few bad actors out there that need to be kind of cleaned out of the system, if you will. There's people that are in the business because they genuinely want to help their clients achieve their financial goals. And there's people who are in it because they want to generate a nice living for themselves. There's probably better ways, I think, to go about getting the latter out of the system. And they just kind of ready, fire, aim the situation, in my opinion. Again, that's just the way that I see it.
Absolutely.
So the way that the industry works now, you have people who get paid commissions for selling quote-unquote financial products, which are, in some cases, variable annuities, life insurance policies that allow you to build up an investment arm inside of the product, inside of the policy, some mutual funds that front load the commissions paid to the client, that kind of stuff. And before, the burden was only the advisor making sure that they all offered some kind of rationale around suitability. So is this investment product suitable for the person that I'm selling it to? So suitable really just means...
That sounds like a low bar.
Ben graduated from college. He has the capacity to understand math. And so when I told him that here's the thing that he's buying, he said, oh, okay, cool. Ben has a job. His wife has a job. It's suitable for them because they can afford it. That's suitability. Well, that's a very low bar. So the fiduciary standard is supposed to raise that bar so that the best interest of the client is priority number one. Anytime I'm making a recommendation to you, the client, I'm not concerned with what the cost, what the benefit to me, the commission benefit to me would be in that scenario. On the flip side, you have the ability to charge clients an actual fee for your services that is irrespective of whatever type of investment tool they use. So if they buy individual stocks, ETFs, mutual funds, a lot of different more sophisticated things you can build into that as well. But the gist of it is you pay an annual fee that covers any recommendations I'm going to make, so that way essentially you and I, the client, and the advisor are on the same side of the table, and I'm making recommendations based on what's actually in your best interest and not necessarily what's in my best interest.
Absolutely.
The design was a little wonky, and they ended up Trump and his crew ended up throwing the whole thing out, essentially.
Right.
But I do understand the intent behind the rule, which I agree with to most degree.
That makes sense.
There's some pieces in there that, but
So another question for you about that, like there's this set of rules that got thrown out.
Right.
There's another set of rules that are on the horizon potentially, written and directed by a Trump administration. Do you think that inherently in a Trump administration, and this is a lot of people would say and feel, the rules are going to be more or not as helpful to the average person, or is it just going to be different?
So I would say yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in the sense that, in my opinion, frankly, everything that the Trump administration said they were going to do as far as rolling back regulations,
Right.
they've done everything they can to make good on that promise, for
Right.
better or for worse. So, this is the same group that decided they should make it legal to dump ash in, waterways and dump sludge in the ocean. Do
Right.
with that what you will. But on the flip side, I do think that it's important to get it right,
Right,
because so many people are affected by this rule and the way that it's going to be constructed.
Right.
And separately from that, a lot of the major firms actually took it upon themselves to say, look, this rule is going into place whether you like it or not.
Right.
It may or it may not hold up in court once the new sheriff comes into town.
Right.
But we're going to take it upon ourselves as an industry to hold our advisors to a
high
different standard.
Yeah.
And so I can say from the inside looking out, they have gone some more extreme than others,
Right.
but they have gone out of their way to try and accommodate that rule, whether it actually held up or not.
Right.
So the industry is going through a significant transition.
Right.
There are still people who can and will charge commissions to clients for a financial product versus a service, but the shift is happening where mostly everybody is moving toward charging clients a fee for their service the same way an accountant would, or a attorney would, or a doctor even.
Right, absolutely. And to that point, for millennials or other people who are thinking, like, let's say they got their financial footing, they have a little bit saved and stacked up, and they're considering approaching a personal finance professional. Considering those things, what are some things people need to keep in mind when they're going to professional help for their finances?
I would say transparency is probably number one. That's one of those corporate buzzword bingo slots that I hate even having to use the word, but frankly, it applies.
Okay.
Having confidence in the person sitting across the table from you when you ask them questions that A, they actually know what they're talking about,
Right.
but B, they're telling you the thing that's in your best interest.
Right.
And to me, I granted, this is a biased opinion, right? We're talking about somebody who actually does charge clients fees for financial advice.
Right.
But to me, anyone who doesn't actually offer their clients the option for that fee for service kind of relationship
Right.
is not doing that client any justice, because now I can't be confident that the recommendations you're making to me as the professional are in my best interest.
Right.
So I would say first and foremost, just asking the advisor who you're potentially planning on sitting down with, how will I pay you?
Right.
How will you be compensated for your services?
Right.
And if that answer isn't as easy and clean as I just explained it to you, you should probably gather your things and go on home.
Absolutely.
But again, that's my biased personal opinion.
Certainly. Well, that's definitely some good perspective, Malcolm. When we come back from our first music break, we're going to do Malcolm's Money Minute. But first, if you want to catch past episodes of Manage Your Damn Money, you can simply search our name on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and now Spotify. Also, please leave us a review on any of those platforms. That helps us go up in the ratings. Also, if you have questions for Malcolm and you want him to cover a particular topic on his Malcolm's Money Minute, send us the question, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. We'll also respond on Facebook to messages, facebook.com/manageyourdamnmoney. And you can always catch us on social media all the time. My handle is @MYDM1. Malcolm, what's yours?
@MalcolmOnMoney.
And of course, that's on Instagram and Twitter. This is Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We will be right back. Dear Malcolm, I would like to just say how much I appreciate your show and all of its insight. You did a piece not too long ago about investing in Amazon and Netflix 10 years ago and what that investment would look like now, and that show has just stuck with me. How do I invest? What dollar amount is the best to start with? Can I do it on my own or should I get a financial advisor? I'm definitely nowhere near well off and just barely getting to being financially comfortable, and I want to really take advantage of making my money work for me. I just don't know where to start. Any suggestions? Thank you, and keep up the great work on the show. I learn something new every time I listen and really can't get enough. Sincerely, Paige H. Paige, thank you.
Right. First and foremost, thank you, Paige, for that glowing endorsement. Hopefully, she wrote that on our Apple Podcast sleeve, and we'll get to go up in the ratings. But anyway, so to the question you asked, which is a very common question that I get pretty often, the first thing I would say, and it's kind of a caveat, is to make sure that you actually have some cash on the sidelines, some emergency reserves, preferably 3 to 6 months, depending on your situation, put to the side in cash for your it hits the fan fund, as I like to call it. But beyond that, assuming you do actually have that taken care of, to get it started investing, I wouldn't necessarily advise working with a financial advisor right out the gate, just because of the costs associated with it. And a lot of times when you're getting started, you're talking about literally a startup account where you're putting a few hundred to maybe a couple $1,000s in there to get rolling. To pay somebody fees cuts immediately into the returns that you would see on those monies. And I like to liken investing similar to working out, where you need to be seeing results as soon as possible to actually continue with it and feel like you're having some positive success. So eating away at that return immediately to pay somebody, not really going to get you those results you want to see. But there's really no dollar threshold that I would say you have to start with. I'd say the sooner you can start the habit of putting those dollars away to invest for yourself, invest for your future, the better off you'll be. But to get started, to make it easy on yourself, I would recommend that you look into index funds or maybe mutual funds, and buy one or two of those that you really like, that gives you a broad snapshot of the market overall. Kind of mitigates your risk to a basket of individual companies versus you having to pick the next Facebook or the next Google, because, frankly, nobody's that clairvoyant. And just use that as kind of your set it and forget it approach. Maybe divert a few $100s to that account at some interval that you're comfortable with, and just continue to buy more and more shares of that mutual fund or that ETF until you've actually, amassed a certain amount that you feel requires you to start to get a little more sophisticated and seek professional help. Hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. And if you have other questions or comments for Malcolm or myself, send it to us, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com, and find a way to use clairvoyant in your day-to-day, conversations and things. But on this episode of Manage Your Damn Money, the conversation at hand is major spring 2018 money headlines. We already covered one earlier. This was another big one, Malcolm. Prior salary can't justify wage gap between men and women. U.S. Appeals Court rules. This was a Los Angeles Times piece in April of 2018 by Laura Doolin, an article written about a woman named Aileen Rizzo, learning that a man with less experience and education was hired to the same position as her, and she was a math consultant for the Fresno County Office of Education. She said the new hire made $13,000 more a year than she did. When she asked management about the disparity, she was told that her pay had been based on her prior salary, and then she sued.
Good for her.
Yeah, right. Good for her. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decided unanimously in Rizzo's favor, ruling employers may not consider prior salaries in setting a person's pay. I am just overjoyed, said Rizzo, who is 43. She said in an interview, I have 3 daughters, and I know what I did will make the world a better place for them. I wanted to make a difference. The decision by an 11-judge panel overturned a 3-judge panel's decision last year that actually went against Rizzo. Written by Judge Stephen Reinhart, who actually passed away in late March, said allowing employers to consider prior salaries is setting pay was wholly inconsistent with the Federal Equal Pay Act, the Equal Pay Act, passed in 1963. The financial exploitation of working women, embodied by the gender pay gap, continues to be an embarrassing reality of our economy. And just for some statistics really quickly, women still earn less than men, and the gap costs women more than $860 billion a year. And that was quoted in the story. So Malcolm, very interesting moment. We're still seeing, we've talked about this on the show a couple of times now, where we're continuously seeing this like small snowball rolling in what is being considered appropriate when it comes to getting a new job, finding out what you made at your old job and where that fits in with when you've actually secured a new employment opportunity.
Yeah, interestingly enough, I think that actually helps men and women alike.
Okay.
Especially younger men and women. I know it wasn't necessarily intended to happen that way, but it's kind of a byproduct, especially younger men and women who are minorities. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that this is all happening at the time we're in the lowest unemployment era we've seen in the last 20, 30 years, where the labor market is already at full capacity, right? Which means that for women and minorities specifically, who usually tend to be the lesser paid, folks in the job market, it's the best time to be looking for a job, because you can't really discriminate against me based on those characteristics if you really just need to hire somebody, right? So if I show up with my resume and my good suit on saying, hey, hire me, you don't have 52 other people coming in tomorrow to interview for that
everybody
same
got a job.
So you have to consider just on the merits of, is this person qualified or not, and leave everything else at the door. So at the same time that that's happening in our economy, you also have now this kind of wave, as you said, the snowball effect that's happening, where you can't even ask me how much I made at my last job to pigeonhole me into taking a lower salary for the rest of the time that I'm employed at this company, or worse. So it's very interesting, the timing of how all of this is coming into play, where I think maybe you have this very fast, wide sweeping, almost like a slingshot being pulled backwards and then, moving forward, where parity is happening between people's wages in the workplace.
Oh, wow.
All a bunch of different market forces happening at the same time that gets everybody to the same point.
Absolutely. Question for you. These new laws and ordinances and things that have come out have primarily been in mostly progressive places, progressive cities, coastal cities, as they call them. Do you expect to see this, like, it's happening in the courts, it's happening in legislatures? Do you think this is going to happen in other places as this continues to pick up momentum?
Well, yes and no. I think it'll have to an extent, because you, as the governor of a flyover state, for example, who maybe you have more conservative bases of people and economic anxiety or whatever nonsense term you want to throw on it, where people just say, that's not how we do things here, right? What you're at the risk of is losing the people who live there, who are those younger people that go off to college to better themselves. They want to come home and bring those talents to the state that they grew up in, but then you're not progressive enough to accommodate what they went off to college and saw is the way other people do things. So you're at risk of losing that economy if your more skilled labor leaves to go to these coastal places that you're talking about. So eventually it starts to bleed in and folks start to catch up the way things normally tend to take place, here in these great United States.
This is America.
But I do think it takes some time. It definitely is going to take some time. But the good news is I live in one of those coastal places that you're talking about. So as far as I'm concerned,
it's all good.
It's all good.
Right, indeed. So I have an interesting question for you, because there are a lot of corporations and companies who have actually tried to address this gender wage, minority wage, whatever you want to call it, gap on their own by implementing different policies. It's interesting because another flip side of it, and the question I have it written, how do you appropriately account for differences in experiences and skills, especially between people who are different? So what am I trying to say, essentially? Actually, that's the next question. I'm going to ask you the next question, because that was
So was that like a preview of the remix, and then you gave me the whole remix anyway?
I now see what song I'm singing. Do we risk simply saying each role gets paid this and that's it? by doing this parody thing, or is this more of a good thing? You know what I mean? Like,
I think more than likely we're going toward the way sports have a league minimum.
oh,
So if you come in as this, you have a minimum that you can get paid based on that position that you play.
oh wow.
But then there's a veteran league minimum where if
Okay.
you've been in the league for 3 years or 4,
Right.
you get paid more than the guy who just showed up, got drafted in the 7th round, and is doing the same job that you do. And then if you're 6 years into and so on and so on. But if you are a standout at your position, like a Tom Brady or whoever else is the highest paid player in the league, I can't even think of it right now.
I think it's Jimmy Garoppolo, but anyway.
God, I hope not. But you know what I mean. At each position, you have the guy who's the standard bearer for that position, and then it kind of trickles down through the rest of the ranks.
Right.
I think we're moving toward that
Okay.
kind of system where the minimum we're going to pay a person who does your job is X based on the amount of experience you have.
Right.
But then once you get to year 6, year 10, year 15, and whatever, if you're a standout and we recruited you away from that place that you were, we'll pay you whatever you tell us to pay you to get you to come here. But at least there's a floor that no matter who you are or where you come from, this is the amount we have to pay you.
And either way, these kinds of things, whether it be in the courtroom or, like I said, legislatures and states and whatnot, it's helpful to kind of even the playing field for a lot of different folks. Of course, today's conversation at hand, we're talking about different spring headlines that you should be focused on as summer approaches, things that can help you understand how to manage your money. This is, of course, Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. The next headline, Malcolm, why moving home after graduation might be your best money move. This was a story from Forbes.com by Danny Pascarella. This was from April 2018, and this is actually a really timely piece because we're in May. May is like the time when people are graduating, and people are wondering, what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going? Well, something that I might suggest with firsthand knowledge and experience, maybe take your butt home. The number of young adults living with their parents is its highest it's been in 75 years, which is crazy. Millennials are earning 20% less than their parents did at the same age. Meanwhile, the cost of major monthly expenses has soared in recent years. Housing is usually the largest fixed cost for an individual, and typically a 20-something is spending 45% of their income on rent. Comparatively, baby boomers had a much lower rent burden at just 36% of their income. Crunching the numbers reveals that between the ages of 22 and 30, millennials will spend, get this, Malcolm, $92,600 on rent on average, almost $100,000.
Believe it or not, I never thought to add up all the money I've spent in the years on rent, and that's that.
To be the money greedy person you are, I'm kind of surprised.
I probably was just trying to repress it out of even being, because I'm talking about DC rent.
Right.
So I probably just said, you know what, I don't even want to think about it. Right. It doesn't exist. Just take it.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. Actually, that. Oh man, it sounds so bad when you added it up like that. $100,000 over what was that? 8 years.
What does it say? 8 years, 22 and 30. That's crazy.
But at the same time, I can't sit up here and act holier than thou and tell anybody my best advice to you is going to be move back in with your parents, and because I did. So when I graduated from college, I stayed in North Carolina for 2 or 3 months after I graduated. I can't even remember. And then I was on the first thing smoking back to DC. So I moved back into my folks' house and spent 18 months there before I moved out into my first apartment. And it was challenging sometimes, so I lived by myself when I was in North Carolina.
Right.
The last few years I was in school.
I had to go back to being a child, Malcolm.
Right. So now I'm in my little teeny child bedroom.
You got chores.
You got, it's a lot of dynamics at play. So yes, you're right. From a purely financial perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. It's the best thing you could do for yourself to get started, on your career. Right. But at the same time, I can't say to anybody, this is the best thing you could ever do, and it's going to be okay, and you'll have so much fun with your parents, and who knows?
Has anyone ever said that?
But on the flip side, though, what I found eventually was I was more willing to spend more time at work focusing on my craft.
Oh, wow.
I was I'm gonna just hang out here. I'll just and so I'm at work till 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, working on work stuff.
Your mom texted you, talk about, when you come home for dinner? It's ready already.
Probably thought I was lying when I said I'm still at work, but like I was actually willing to,
That's
put in those extra hours because what am I in a rush to do? Like,
That's true. That's true. Some more pieces, a little bit more from the article. Another major monthly expense, obviously, is student loan debt. Today, 70% of college students graduate with student loans. The average borrower leaving campus with $37,000 of debt. That balance is $20,000 higher than the average just 13 years ago. And the average monthly payment for a borrower in their 20s is about $393, which is a huge chunk out of your.
That's a car note.
Yeah, it's a car note for sure. A nice car too, maybe even a BMW. Many parents in the media view having a degree, a job, and living on your own as quote unquote being successful. So when millennials opt to live at home, they often get bashed for being lazy and for freeloading off their helicopter parents. I don't know if anyone accused you of that, Malcolm.
Probably.
By following this path and living at home, most 20-somethings would be able to move out at 25, completely debt-free and with a fully stocked emergency fund. And they would have even more discretionary income than their peers because they wouldn't have to make that $393 payment every month for their student loans. This is one area where I do agree in that, like, I never went back home to California because there are a lot of elements that didn't feel like I didn't have a network. Mm-hmm. I've been on the East Coast for the last 5 years. And then also LA traffic is insane. And I was not going back to live and work in that. But aside from those elements, if I would have had the opportunity to work and put more on my student loans, pay them off line by line, spent a year and a half or whatever it was to not have to worry about rent and those kinds of things, that would have been like really, as you said before, clairvoyant of me, which I wasn't. But it's one thing that I would say, if someone had the opportunity to do it and is just now graduating from college, they definitely should consider sticking it out with mom or dad or everybody.
So to that end, actually, as we were talking about this, I completely forgot when I was reading through the script, but one of my mentees actually did successfully pull this off.
Really?
So she graduated from college. She went back home. Her mom's a single mom, so just the two of them.
Right.
She went back home for 2 years, paid off all of her student loans because she graduated and did really well and actually started her first job making like $65,000.
Oh, wow.
Which for a new graduate is like
That's
pretty
a whole
significant. First jumping into the labor force. So she actually paid off all of her student loan debt within that 2 years.
Right.
And managed to save up a down payment to buy her first house.
Oh, wow.
So when she moved out of her mom's house, it was to buy her own house, which like I was like blown away that she was even willing to like buy into, maybe this is the way I should be, like actually. So to your point, I somehow I forgot. I've seen it successfully done.
Right.
And it has its advantages as long as you have the good sense to say I'm doing this for the long term, not necessarily worried about the shorter term.
So you could do hood rat
conflicts.
Things.
Right.
Yeah, do hood rat things with your friends. Well, that's interesting. Definitely something to think about for those who are on the way to graduation, or even if you could like back your way into your parents' house, like even as like a postgraduate person. It might be something to consider. You never know. But of course, you've been listening to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. I want to remind you that you can always listen to past episodes of the show on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and also Spotify. Of course, please leave us a review on any of those platforms. That helps us go up in the ratings, helps more people see and listen to our show. Of course, if you have questions for Malcolm or for myself or just a comment, send us your email, info@manageyourdamnmoney.com. And of course, you can always catch us on social media. Malcolm, what's your information?
At Malcolm on Money.
And of course, mine is at MYDM1, and that's on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, you can catch us on Facebook, facebook.com/Manage Your Damn Money. Of course, thanks to our partners here at Montgomery Community Media and to our crew for another great show. Until the next time, be good with your money.
Peace.
Peace.